Mr. President, dear Donald, ministers, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I too welcome you to Georgia for this 16th Georgia's European Way conference. This conference takes a renewed importance because of the exceptionally high-level participation for which we thank you all, but also because it takes place at a major turning point for Georgia and for the EU. The time has come to set a new course in our relations after a successful decade of partnership. I want to welcome you first as the president, not of a pro-European nation, but of a proud European nation. A country, that's for Georgia, whose culture and civilization are distinctly European. The home of Medea in ancient mythology, the cradle of winemaking, a Christian nation since the 4th century in its first parliamentary elections in 1918. It's only natural that it has now a female president. Our values, culture, history, all are European. Our politics are European. Our population, 80% of which supports the objective of joining the European Union, and that is steadily in the past 15 years without any change, without Euroscepticism. In the current context that is spread in Europe, Georgia has become a kind of exception as one of the staunchest and enthusiastic advocate of the European Union. For all their domestic differences, and there are some, all major political parties share and promote European integration. And this deeply entrenched aspiration was enshrined in the new constitution that we adopted last year. Since 1990, Georgia has gone through many difficult episodes, rebuilding a state since regaining independence after 70 years of Soviet rule, recovering from the 2008 war, which led to the occupation of 20% of our territory, and living with that wound open. Overcoming the challenges associated with the gradual establishment of democracy. Yet, throughout this challenging period, one feature has gone unaltered: our steadfast commitment to rejoining our European family. In the past 2 decades, Georgia has made significant progress, thanks to you, on its pathway to Europe. 15 years ago, we joined the European Neighborhood Policy. 10 years ago, we became part of the Eastern Partnership. 5 years ago, we signed an association agreement. We now benefit from closer links than ever through a free trade agreement, visa-free access, and major economic assistance, trade, and integration. Our economic links have grown year after year, with the EU becoming our first trading partner, overtaking both Turkey and Russia. As a result of this decade of partnership, never has Georgia been so close to the EU. And this process of ever closer links with the EU has brought immense benefits to the country and to our population. Georgia has become, over these past 15 years, more democratic and more prosperous. Our democratic culture has matured through a series of firsts: a first peaceful transfer of power, a first parliament without a constitutional majority, a first presidential runoff. Our institutions have been strengthened. Parliament's powers have been decisively bolstered to avoid any return to one-man rule. Media pluralism has never been stronger. A series of reforms have reinforced the rule of law for both individuals and businesses. Where we are today is a testimony to the determination of the Georgian people and the readiness and support of our European partners. But Georgia's ambition does not stop here, and is very clear. It is to go even further on the path towards membership. As president, my model is very clear. It's President Freiberg of Latvia. Having fled Soviet occupation into Canada, she came back from political immigration to get her country into the European Union and the Atlantic Alliance. I don't want anything less for Georgia. We will never shy away from those goals of Euro-Atlantic integration. While we are ambitious for ourselves, we also want Europe to succeed and consolidate. As partners, we understand that Europe is going through its own challenges, from Brexit negotiations to the rise of Euroscepticism and the migration issue, to name a few. All point to the need for Europe to also reform itself, and it is evident that European public opinion currently prioritizes domestic reforms over new accessions. Because Georgia is eager for Europe to succeed, we can remain a little bit patient. But in return, we need to remain collectively bold and ambitious. Keeping the positive momentum is crucial when defining the new course of partnership. As your success story, we aspire to be innovative. We're small enough to be a testing ground. But as we enter this new phase of partnership, we cannot stop. We cannot even slow down. We have to deepen the current partnership, and we have to move towards an even closer relationship. And it should be based on a full Georgian participation in more European policies, more Georgian inclusion in European trade and economics, more European democracy in Georgia. We should look together at new opportunities as we intend to knock on every door, to open every door. And by the time we have finished opening all the new doors, you will discover that Georgia has become a member. In other words, in line with our motto, more Georgia in Europe and more Europe in Georgia, we should focus on a few directions. First, closer human links. Georgia should be allowed to fully integrate various European policies that will provide tangible evidence to the citizens that we are getting even closer, even deeper. We should be allowed a full participation, full membership into programs and policies that are related to culture and education. There is not one good reason why Georgia should not be a full member of Europe's cultural sphere, of Europe's educational sphere. We have been one of the most active users of Erasmus, and we have to get full participation in the program that will follow Erasmus. We have joined the Association for Quality Assurance in Higher Education, and we look forward to joining the European Quality Assurance in Vocational Training and Training Work Education. We are part of Creative Europe, and we will be the guest of the Europalia Festival in 2022. Georgia aspires to be accepted as full member of Europe's cultural sphere, and for that, a very good signal, a very tangible signal, would be to already start thinking which Georgian city should become, in the future, the European cultural capital. The visa-free regime has been a great achievement that has changed the human relationship between Georgia and Europe. We will continue to work to meet the challenges of asylum seekers, and we know how important that is for our European partners. Circular migration is our top priority as an answer, and we are working on initial agreements with our European partners in order to develop qualified professional workforce, and we will need Europe's support and facilitation in that direction. We need also to deepen our economic integration beyond and deeper into the free trade agreement in order for our economy to become even more heavily interlinked with Europe. For that, we have to further integrate Georgia into EU policies related to energy, transport, communications, regional development, security, in line with our unilateral roadmap. We also need, and that has been said already, and that is very important, a specific financial mechanism, which would be based on our association agreement and based on our merits and achievements. It is needed to support the last and the most challenging wave of reforms, as well know all the countries that have gone before us on the path towards membership. We need also to adjust our economy with a view to aligning ourselves with the EU's single market rules, and the philosophy in the end should be to remove non-tariff trade barriers to structurally integrate our economy with Europe's. When looking at the future, we also have to think outside the box. As I made clear, we understand the realities that inform the political decision to award countries candidate status. But it would be difficult, on the other hand, for Georgians to understand stalling or slowing our movement towards the EU. After all, the accession process, and you all know that, has been Europe's most effective foreign policy tool to nudge countries closer and further democratic reforms. You cannot renounce this tool. One idea outside the box could be for Georgia to start accession chapter negotiations on an ad hoc basis. Such a pragmatic, non-institutional, non-political decision would be very significant and very important. It would anchor Georgia to Europe, prevent any form of disillusionment or skepticism from taking hold, while giving the EU time, short time, to come around. But this process is also based on Georgia delivering its part. For its part, we will continue our path to strengthen our democratic credentials. As President, I will guarantee that we continue our progress in three essential directions. First, we will need to implement much needed institutional reforms, which will require political support and practical assistance from the EU and its member states. Those three directions are the fourth wave of reforms of the judicial system, which is essential to further increase the confidence of the Georgian people in an independent court system and further strengthen the rule of law. Public administration reform, which is needed to ensure a highly professional and stable civil service. An anti-corruption strategy will ensure higher transparency and accountability of governmental institutions. Secondly, we will continue to promote political dialogue and unity in the political space, which has been my motto since I was elected. In this regard, the decision of the ruling party in answer to public demands to move to a fully proportional system in the 2020 elections will mark a landmark. It will make Parliament more representative by ensuring the inclusion of broader parts of the society in politics, and it will certainly help to overcome the Soviet legacy of one party, one person rule, as it may well result at one point in time in the country getting its first coalition government. In any case, Georgia will begin to institutionally resemble any other European parliamentary democracy. Third, we will strive to implement most, if not all, of the OSCE's recommendations to refine the electoral process ahead of the 2020 elections. Each election must see progress and strive to meet the European thresholds. Unfortunately, our European destiny cannot fully ignore geography. On August 8, we will mark the 11th anniversary of the war, which has resulted in the occupation of 20% of our territory. If this was meant to move us away from our European path, the resilience of Georgia has been our strategic response. While Abkhazia and South Ossetia no longer make world headlines, it remains an open wound for every single citizen of Georgia. This is an issue that cannot nor will go away. The popular demonstrations that took place on June 20th were a natural expression of what has been brewing for a decade. On the one hand, popular outrage against the illegal occupation of a sovereign nation. On the other, frustration with the lack of political progress towards reunification. While we are thankful for the decisions Europe has made to bring us closer, the message of the Georgian people is that it also expects more support from Europe, more engagement when it comes to addressing occupation. Reaffirmation of support for our territorial integrity are welcome and necessary, but they are not enough, as youthful protests have made clear. Unsolved conflicts sow the seeds for long-term instability. Georgia is a peaceful nation, which never in its history invaded a foreign country. Georgians have continued to host millions of Russian tourists with our traditional hospitality and tolerance and in full safety, despite and since the 2008 war. Our unwavering choice is for a peaceful and diplomatic resolution to the issue of occupation, as made clear by our peace plan, Steps Toward a Better Future. Democratic, peaceful, stable despite everything, and European, that is what we are as a country. Recent renewed tensions with Russia also demonstrate that unsolved conflicts and status quo is neither politically acceptable nor conducive to long-term stability. My call for de-escalation, my suggestions to reinvigorate Geneva talks with a political dimension, my conviction that Europe has to be more engaged to support our choice for a peaceful issue to occupation are the answer to the challenge that we are facing. Georgia does not need to look for pseudo-historic arguments to justify itself, because it doesn't have to justify itself. Georgia has never breached international law. Georgia has never violated international principles or any country's sovereignty or borders. Our peace plan is in action. I was here in Batumi in 2005, watching the first boat leaving with the Russian equipment following the negotiations that are carried on the withdrawal of military bases. I'm convinced if we all avoid mistakes, if we all engage together, if we avoid any form of escalation, that we will all witness the departure of the Russian military bases from Gudauta or from the Trin Valley region. Stability in our region, stability in the Black Sea is for Europe as precious as it is to Georgia and to all our neighbors. We all have to work for it. You need our stability, and all the region needs our stability. We need your political support, mediation, involvement, call it what you want, to reunify our country. You need our Euro enthusiasm to inspire your people and give Europe a new spirit. We need your support to go through this last phase of challenging democratic and economic reforms to get where we want to be, together with you, fully in Europe.